Police claim that 19-year-old Kentucky woman Marly Kinney went out on a boat with her friends and never came back. But when police made a tragic discovery, the boat driver was already in handcuffs, but not for homicide. What really happened out there? We're going to bring on a forensic diver and marine law enforcement expert to help us understand what investigators are looking for. Welcome to Sidebar, presented by Law&Crime. I'm Jesse Weber. All right, before we jump into this, real quick, look, America only turns 250 once. It's the truth. And to celebrate this historic milestone, Chef IQ, our partner, our sponsor, has released this, okay? A limited edition Stars and Stripes Chef IQ Sense Smart Meat Thermometer. This thing right here is built for backyard legends and proud patriots and serious barbecue fans alike, okay? This Stars and Stripes edition comes in this bold red, white, and blue styling and includes individually numbered units, so every piece is like a unique part of this once-in-a-generation celebration. And this IQ Sense does more than look cool. It does more than look like a cool collector's item. Underneath this design is the same pro-level performance and smart technology that makes the IQ Sense. With the wireless probe that works with Wi-Fi for monitoring from anywhere, you're going to be able to watch the fireworks and not the grill. It also works for every protein, from prime rib and wings to chicken to fish. Use my code. Use my code SIDEBAR for 40% off site-wide at chefiq.com. That's chefiq.com, and use my code SIDEBAR for 40% off. This is an incredibly tragic story that we're going to be talking about. There's no other way to describe it. And this involves a young woman who was just on a boat out with her friends, ends up seemingly going out for a swim, never comes back alive. That's what happened to this woman, Marly Kinney, 19 years old. 19. It was an afternoon out on Grayson Lake in Kentucky that turned into an absolute nightmare. According to police, she went overboard to use the bathroom, and that was the last time anybody saw her alive. Her body was found 4 days later. And there was an arrest. There was an arrest made in this case, the boat driver, but it was not for homicide. Okay, to be clear, it is not for killing Marly. What happened out on that boat? Now, this is going to sound very familiar when I talk about this, right? A young woman, a boat, alcohol, potentially alcohol, a family waiting for answers. I think you know where I might be going with this. We'll talk about it a little bit later. But the thing about it is, when someone goes into the water and doesn't come back up, figuring out what really happened, it takes more than just, looking into the lake. This can be complicated. It takes somebody who knows how to read these situations and what to look for. In a little bit, we're going to bring on a forensic diver and marine law enforcement expert to get a better sense of this, because he's going to help us understand what investigators are looking for right now, what questions they're still trying to answer. Because this search may be over, but the questions, they're just getting started. So I want to lay out exactly what we seem to know at this point based on the reporting. 19-year-old Marly Kinney from Ashland, Kentucky. She was out on Grayson Lake on Wednesday, June 24th. It was on a rented pontoon boat with a group of friends, at least 10 of them. This is according to authorities. And this was supposed to just be a fun day on the water. Around 4 p.m., she reportedly went overboard. Police say she was just trying to use the bathroom, and she hadn't been seen since. Now, here's the thing that's kind of hard to wrap your head around. Her friends didn't realize that she was missing right away, at least not immediately. That's according to investigators. Now, there was an arrest made in this case, and we're going to get into that in a little bit, but the details are pretty wild. First, you got the search. Multiple law enforcement agencies launched what officials called an exhaustive search. So we're talking sonar, thermal detectors, helicopters, K-9 teams, underwater drones. The Ashland Fire Department sent divers. The Lexington Fire Department sent divers. Kentucky State Police provided aerial support. More than 50 volunteers walked the banks of that lake. Rain showers made things harder. They kept going, though, throughout all that. And meanwhile, her family was desperately waiting for answers. Her sister posted on social media pleading for help, saying police and wildlife officials, they were doing everything they could, but was asking people not to spread rumors, writing, quote, "My little sister Marly Kinney has been missing, as you all have seen. There's been searches. Police are doing as much as they can, and the Wildlife Association, but please let me know if you find anything out. Please do not believe or spread rumors as well. Nobody has been found, and we plan to search until we find anything." And the search stretched into its third day. Her sister posted again, this time expressing her frustration with all the speculation and misinformation online. She wrote, "I'm so exhausted of everything and misinformation being spread, all of the speculations and accusations being thrown around, all of the fake videos being created and horrible things people are saying or claiming. I could care less about how it happened. Who did it right now? I just want her found. I will place the blame later when she's found. If you have genuine, urgent information, contact me through my Instagram. Do not contact me otherwise unless you're one of Marly's close friends, someone from the boat, close friends, or my family. I know this likely sounds rude or sounds insensitive. I'm still going to be out looking for her, but the media is becoming too much. I can never understand why people claim things that aren't true, why they flood comment sections that could be giving important information with rumors or, well, I think this happened. You were not there, and it won't help find my little sister. Thank you for everyone helping and everyone spreading information about her. I truly am so grateful. I'm just also tired. I want everyone to be safe." And then what happens? Sunday, June 28th, around 3:45 p.m., they find her. Her body was recovered from Grayson Lake. The Kentucky Department of Fish and Wildlife Resources confirmed her identity and said that the family had been notified. Her sister confirmed this in a heartbreaking post, writing, quote, "Hello, everyone. This will be a hard read, so I'm keeping it short. My sister has been found deceased. We are truly grateful for everyone on every team that helped us search for her, everyone's prayers, everyone who reached out to help." Boyd County High School, where Marly graduated just last year as part of the class of 2024, also shared a memorial post asking the community to keep her family, friends, classmates in their thoughts. The cause of death at the time of this reporting, still unknown. The state medical examiner's office is going to determine that, which means right now nobody knows exactly what happened to her out there. And this is where it gets interesting too, because there was an arrest made in this case. The boat driver was taken into custody the very same day that Marly disappeared. But here's the thing. He wasn't arrested for her death. He was arrested for something else. And what he was arrested for, that's going to tell us a lot about what investigators may be doing. But before we even get into more of the specifics of this with the expert that we're going to bring on, I just want to, extend my thoughts, my prayers, my best wishes to the family. This is a really, really heartbreaking and tragic position to be in, and it's unthinkable. And I'm really, really sorry that they're going through this. But I want to try to understand what's happening behind the scenes. But before we even get into that, I want to bring on our guest. So we're joined by Alex Beer, who's a forensic diver, marine law enforcement expert, and it's so happy to have him. Alex, thanks for taking the time to talk about this. Really appreciate it.
No problem. Thanks for having me on.
So before we even get into more of the specifics here, let's just go to the basic questions, okay? When someone goes seemingly overboard and isn't found for days, what are the initial steps that are taken to locate the body? Do you also look at the craft itself? I mean, what are the initial steps of an investigation?
Well, initially, given the location, so Grayson Lake, I believe, is the location there in Kentucky, is a pretty expansive lake, not big in size, but very long, and there's a lot of coves and places. So the first part of it would be trying to identify, like, where was the last point that she was seen, physically seen by anybody that was there. Starting there, given that the water, with all the weather they've been having, and pretty typically in lakes, the visibility is near zero. So initially, I would think that using sonar in the water to attempt to locate anomalies to kind of zero in on something, whether that's side scan sonar or boat sonar, attempt to locate her in the water.
Can you expand on that? How does the sonar work for finding a body or an anomaly?
Sure. Well, sonar is sound that is being put out through the water via whatever type of sonar, whether that's side scan or multi-beam. It goes out, hits something, and comes back, and then produces goes through a computer model that models an image. So basically, you get an image of the bottom. So you'll see things like, trees and rocks and things like that fairly clearly, things that give a good return. Finding bodies is a little bit more difficult depending on water depth and vegetation, and it does have its limitations, but it gives you an image of the bottom. And then given experience and practice and training, you interpret those anomalies and things will stand out to you. And it won't necessarily look like a person, but it's something that shouldn't be there. And so then you're going to want to investigate those things more thoroughly.
Is it strange to you that her body reportedly wasn't found for several days?
It's not strange to me. I don't know anything about this particular lake. I don't know how deep it is. I don't know anything about its conditions. But it's not strange to me in the sense that it's difficult if assuming, and I'm assuming, not knowing all the facts of the case, but let's say she drowned. So a drowning victim will go directly to the bottom. They will stay there for a period of time until they begin to decompose, and then the buildup of the gases in the body will cause the body to what they call refloat and come to the surface, and then they're subjected, to wind and water movement and can be moved around at that point. I don't know if she could swim, and I don't know what the circumstances of her going in the water were, but assuming she drowned and went under, then it comes down to having a good, accurate last seen point and starting your search from there. And then depending on what type of sonar they were using and how much training they have, reading sonar, it's not as clear as, say, like looking at your Google Maps or something like that. You really kind of have to know what you're looking for, and to pick those anomalies out. It's not always very clear cut. So, and that varies a lot based on the type of sonar you're using and the experience level of the person using it.
By the way, I know you're not familiar with this particular body of water, but generally speaking, what happens to a body that is in water for that period of time? You talked about how it sinks, the gases, but if you're trying to find evidence, if you're trying to determine cause of death, is there a degradation of the body in a certain way?
There is. There haven't been a lot of details about the condition of the victim when she was recovered, but certain things, obviously the body changes, right? The body bloats and the body changes, but things like, tattoos and things like that, you'll still see those things and recognize those things. I'm sure what the coroner and the medical examiner is looking for is things like, did she fall overboard and get run over by the boat? So is there evidence of like a boat strike? Does she have any large wounds, propeller marks, things like that would indicate that, she fell over while the boat was in transit ultimately and then was hit. And then, as a result, those are the things that led to her death or her drowning. Or did she just drown? There's no marks on her. And those things, you'll still recognize them or see them. Obviously, they'll be distorted, but they're still identifiable.
Alex, let me ask you about this search itself, because the amount of resources that went into finding her is pretty staggering. I mean, according to Kentucky Fish and Wildlife, they deployed boats, Ashland Fire Department divers, sonar, which we talked about, Kentucky State Police helicopters, drones, UTVs, ATVs, K9 teams, cadaver dogs. The Lexington Fire Department sent divers. The Kentucky State Police provided aerial support. More than 50 volunteers walked the banks of the lake. And on top of all that, like we've been talking about, that they were using these thermal detectors and underwater drones. First of all, how do you coordinate something like that? Because it seems like a massive undertaking with a lot of different individuals on a lot of different parties.
Yes, but I think that, you'll have a lead agency. So I think that was probably Kentucky Fish and Wildlife was probably the lead agency. So there'll be a command center that's sort of coordinating all of those assets, documenting who's where, who's doing what, how many boats, how many divers, where they're looking, the volunteers searching the shoreline, the cadaver dogs, all of those things are coordinated through a command center. And in law enforcement, we do a lot of training, especially fire and law enforcement, does a lot of training like incident command systems where we train for those operations. And in places like Kentucky, I'm going to guess by the response that they probably do a lot of multi-agency trainings to help recognize, what assets people have, what they can call in, and then sort of working those things together. There'll be somebody sort of running the boats and somebody running the dive and somebody running the land-based search, somebody running aviation, and all those things are pouring into one command center for, sort of an overall control of the situation.
By the way, what are underwater drones? What do those look like?
Well, an underwater drone is not like it's not typically autonomous. Usually, when people say underwater drone, they mean a ROV or remotely operated vehicle, which is varies in size, but they can be anywhere from the on the smaller side to big commercial ones. But typically, it's a small multi-propellered platform that has typically a camera, sonar, and things on it as well. Usually, like a grappler arm that they can fly via tether, so it's tethered to the surface, where they can watch on a monitor and see sort of the sonar screen and a video screen, and be able to look around with that to check in areas, or to even check on maybe an anomaly that they saw on another type of sonar that they want to get sort of a visual look at before committing divers to the water.
There was something that we talked about a little bit, but I just want to expand upon it. According to officials, this search was paused multiple times. First, it was due to darkness. Then it was because of scattered rain showers. You talked a little bit about how weather can affect this, but also what happens when you have to stop and restart a search.
Mm-hmm. I mean, you're tracking your daily progress. So most areas use there's a variety of them out there, but like what we'll use in like an area search is something called SARCOP, which is a way for the command center to see in real time where searchers have been, what areas have been searched, and so that if they have to pause it, they can come back and sort of overlap and pick up where they left off, so they don't have to keep restarting. And in a lake like Grayson Lake, from what I looked at on a map, it's fairly narrow. It's not a wide, expansive lake, so those areas were probably cordoned off or gridded off for the people to say, okay, you're going to go here. This is your area of responsibility. You're going to go here. And as they mark off those areas, they sort of just chip away at it until they get through it.
Yeah. I want to get into the arrests now. We haven't talked about it yet. So, because I think the details are pretty interesting. So the boat driver has been identified by authorities as 23-year-old Cameron Conley. And according to the arrest citation that was obtained by Lex 18, Conley had allegedly told marina staff that he wasn't able to locate a woman who had been on his boat. That's when authorities were notified. Kentucky State Police responded to Grayson Lake Marina that same evening. So we're talking Wednesday, June 24th. And when troopers spoke with Conley, they reportedly smelled alcohol in his breath. They observed bloodshot, glassy eyes. He admitted or allegedly admitted that he had been drinking. And with his reported consent, Conley submitted to a breathalyzer test. He reportedly blew a .137. That's our understanding to be nearly twice Kentucky's legal limit of .08. And about 20 minutes later, according to Fox 56, they tested him again and reportedly it was .135. So he was arrested for boating under the influence, BUI. It's a first-degree offense, taken to Carter County Detention Center. And here's something that I wanted to ask you about, Alex. So he was released after a 20-minute observation period. He's due in court next month. What does that tell you about where this investigation is? What does that tell you about where law enforcement is in treating this BUI charge right now in the middle of what was an active, missing persons investigation? Talk to me about your initial thoughts about that.
Initially, my thoughts are maybe stating the obvious is that what we see a lot in boating accidents and things like this are alcohol or drug or some sort of substance impairment, and it really just goes to show that those two things just don't mix. I realize that boating is a recreational activity. BUIs, unlike DUIs, you don't need a driver's license to operate a boat. So it doesn't necessarily affect you. And I don't know how Kentucky's laws are, excuse me.
Sure.
But typically BUIs don't affect your driving. Like a BUI won't prevent you, like suspend your license, because it's a recreational activity. Pretty much the laws and anybody can operate a boat. I know here in Florida where I'm at, you have to have like a boater ID card, which is an online course that teaches you sort of the basic rules of the road. I'm not sure if they have that there, but it's obviously more lax to operate a boat. I'm guessing, my impression is that this was a rented pontoon boat. I've heard two different versions that it was a group of 10 people on the boat out having a day, and I've heard that he came back to the marina by himself saying that he couldn't find her, and I'm not sure which reporting is accurate, but either way,
Right.
I think it goes to the fact that being under the influence and making poor decisions on a boat can lead to things like fatalities and certainly injuries. And what are the circumstances? If there were 10 people on the boat, how did nobody see her go over? I've seen a report that said she went over to go.
Well, that's interesting. So let me just jump in. He said the citation, according to local media, says that Conley told troopers, quote, he could not find one of his passengers. That's the
Right.
language he apparently used. Not she fell, not she jumped, not it was Marly. I thought that was interesting.
It is, and I think that so from an investigative standpoint, if there were 10 people on the boat and 9 came back, investigators are going to want to interview everybody that was on that boat on that day, whether they were on the boat together or not. But everybody that was there, they're going to want to interview them and try and piece together sort of that blank spot in the story where she went out on a boat, she didn't come back. So what happened? I think the other side of that is, as an investigator, you can look at it two ways, right? There's really two responses: tragic accident, or was there something malicious, or was there malintent? And I don't know that. I don't know what the relationship between these people are. So I think an investigator wants to get everybody's story, hear what they have to say, and then do what investigators do, which is start to poke holes in the story, because my impression is that these are all young people, that something bad happened. Whether they intended for it to happen or not, something bad happened. And so I think what you normally see with a group of young people is they sort of close ranks, like, I don't want to get in trouble for this. Like, I don't want to be in trouble. I don't want to, I don't want to, and they tend to formulate a plan. Whether that's, hey, let's just be honest, or that's, hey, we need to come up with stories or whatever it is. And I think that's where investigators are going to start focusing on to determine, was this just an accident or was this something else?
Sure. And to be clear, there's also a middle ground, but I want to make it clear about this. There's a chance two things could be true at once, right? There's a chance that you could have somebody who's driving under the influence and someone falls overboard and, let's say, drowns, and it's not due to the driving under the influence, right? It could have been for any other factor, and he's not currently charged in connection with her death. So that may never be the case. I mean, I wonder how difficult it would be to determine what the sequence of events, because there is a possibility that the two things are unrelated.
Sure, but you do have a responsibility as anybody would. It's like a hit and run, right? You're driving down the road and somebody walks out in front of your car and you run into them. You have the option to stay on scene, which is what you should do. And, hey, I didn't see this person. You tell your side of it. Then you have the other side where people panic and they take off because they're like, oh my God, I just did something terrible. Not because they meant to, but it was an accident. I find it, and again, that will come out as the investigation unfolds. Like, where did it take place? How far is that from the marina that he brought the boat back to? Who was there? Things like that will start to come out as the investigation starts to ramp up with getting more information. Yeah, dude, he may not have. I don't think anybody. I don't believe, and innocent until proven guilty. I don't think there's enough information to formulate one way or the other at this point. I think there's still a lot of unknowns that they're going to work on trying to figure out. I mean, I would ask the basic questions from the family, like, can she swim?
Now, actually, this reminds me of something that I wanted to go to, because this is a story that sounds very familiar. The circumstances are different, but a young woman, 19 years old, goes overboard on a boat, seemingly. The operator allegedly drunk. You have a family who's waiting for answers. This is very similar to the Mallory Beach case. Paul Murdoch, remember? He was charged with boating under the influence, causing her death. Again, a little bit different than what we're talking about here. But before he could face trial, he and his mother were murdered. And his father, Alec Murdaugh, was convicted of killing them, even though that conviction was overturned. Now, I'm not saying that's what's happening here in Kentucky, but I am saying when you see a case that starts like this, young woman dead, potentially alcohol involved, an operator charged with DUI, the investigators are looking for a lot more than just what happened. And so, Alex, what are the undercurrents that investigators are looking for in a case like this? I mean, beyond the BUI charge, what other lines of investigation are standard? What can we expect next? When would we have more answers? Talk to me about it.
Well, I think you're going to find, the initial charge was for what they dealt with when they first met with him. I think as the story unfolds, additional charges may follow, they may not, if it's deemed an accident or if there's something about the investigation from the medical examiner about her cause of death. All those things will come into play. And I think the common thread between those two stories is you have young people, alcohol, which influences or causes poor decisions to be made. And again, I don't know which way it's going to go, but I think clearly, she should have come back with everybody else. And why didn't she?
That's the key, right? And look, the cause of death as of right now is unknown. The medical examiner's office in Frankfurt, it's going to determine that, or hopefully determine that. I should also say that the investigation's ongoing. Kentucky Fish and Wildlife, they've made that clear. If anybody has information about what happened to Marly Kinney on Grayson Lake, investigators are asking you to come forward. You can actually contact Kentucky Fish and Wildlife law enforcement at the number we have right up there. You can reach out to Kentucky State Police as well. We know that Cameron Conley is out on bond. He's waiting for his next court date next month. But Alex, thank you so much for taking the time. I really appreciate it.
Well, I appreciate you having me on, and I just want to, prayers to the family that are dealing with the loss of their daughter and their sister, and it's tragic. And let the investigators do their job and let that investigation run its course, and hopefully that whether it be justice or answers for the family will come from that.
And that's all we have for you right now here on Sidebar. Everybody, thank you so much for joining us. And as always, please subscribe on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever you should get your podcasts. You can also check us out on NBC's Peacock as well. If you want to follow me, X, Instagram, my News Nation show, Jesse Weber Live, Monday through Friday, 11 p.m. Eastern. See you next time, everybody.